A very good afternoon to this media conference, and thank you for your coverage last night. I want to elaborate on a few points that I couldn't cover in detail in the rally speech. You are here at a hub synergy point, which is where we have our campaign office, and on this floor we have our meetings. So at the rally last night, I gave my speech in 4 languages and 1 dialect. And I want to emphasize that the best way to unify the people of Singapore is where we make some effort to learn the language and the culture of the different ethnic groups. It's not difficult. And I also, when I went to Geylang Serai, I spoke to the Malay stallholders in Malay because I only know simple Malay, but they replied back, Mr. Tan, we are Singaporeans, we can also speak English. So I think this is very good that all the ethnic groups try to respect each other and speak in the language that they're most comfortable with. All right? And that is, I think, the best way to unify people. I also enjoy the food, the Indian food, the Malay food, the Chinese food. I think most Singaporeans enjoy this. So that's also an important part of our culture. Now, my campaign speech last night emphasized that my campaign is to be the voice of the people, and my mission is a better life for all Singaporeans. I want to convey by the voice of the people issues that are of concern to Singaporeans, and I want to work constructively with the government on how to find better solutions to those problems that we have not been able to solve for many years. These problems are the cost of living, the low birth rate, the high stress in our life. So this is why I believe the voice of the people is very important. Now, for the office of the President, I also emphasize that there are important criteria which I have. Financial knowledge is very important because of the duty to safeguard the reserves. International experience, I've been traveling regularly to other countries and meet people of different cultures and languages. I was elected to be the chairman of a large international organization managing assets several times of the Singapore's reserves. Not the organization, but the members of that organization, they manage assets several times of the Singapore reserves. I was on the board for 15 years, more than 15 years, and chairman for 5 years. That's my international experience. And I'm able to act independently. Independently means I don't follow what other people tell me. I follow what I think is right, and what my decisions are based on the values of honesty, fairness, positive attitude, courage, and public service. I find that these values help me to deal with many situations and difficulties. And I'm always, not always, but frequently able, based on these values, to come up with answers that are acceptable to other people, the answers that we share. I also mentioned, pledge again right from the start, I am contesting the presidential election as a public service to serve the people of Singapore. I do not need a large salary, and I pledge to donate at least half of the president's salary. I say at least half. It could be more. of the President's salary towards charity and other worthy purposes. All right, and an important part of my strategy, if I'm President, is to form a President's Personal Council to help me carry out the task of being the voice of the people. I have in mind how this is to be done. It's not just me. My campaign committee has a think tank. They discuss how this is to be done. We come to some good ideas. I believe that there are many people out there who wants to contribute to Singapore by being part of the panel of experts supporting the council. Indeed, this very morning, somebody sent an email to me, and he says, I have interest in, I think he mentioned public transport and another area he wants to serve. I'm sure more people will come forward when the time comes. Now, I want to go into detail in some of the points that I mentioned in my, supposed to be in my speech last night, but it was lack of time, I can't deliver. It was in that written script. One is about national service. My proposal is that our male citizens should be paid a fair salary for the time they spent. It should not be national service minimal allowance. When national service was started 50 years ago, 45 years ago, Singapore was a poor country, struggling. Today we are able to afford, we have big reserves, we are able to afford to pay our male citizens adequately. So my proposal is, let's pay them adequately, either in cash, or if not, young men spend the money too easily, put the money in the CPF savings. So that's my main proposal. Pay them adequately, put a large part in the CPF savings, because they need this for when they come out to the working life, when they want to get married, to buy a house. So pay this into the CPF saving. Alternatively, if this is not paid through the CPF saving, alternatively give them a bigger housing grant when they buy an HDB flat, and the difference between NS men and non-NS men should be the value of the service that they put in national service. Okay, so a bigger housing grant, an amount of $30,000 is probably the right amount. Could be a bit more, a bit less, but around that number. Of course, I also said when this happened, then national service becomes no more a burden, but becomes a privilege. And if it's a privilege, our girls may also want to say, I want to go in for national service. But that will be voluntary. So let's make national service a privilege for citizens rather than a burden. Next, on the elderly poor, we know the elderly people in Singapore, many of them don't have sufficient CPF savings. They do need financial assistance. So I suggested that we should consider giving them a pension either from 75 or from 80, age 80. That's the time when the CPF saving might have run out, so that they do not have to work just to earn enough to feed themselves. I also want to address the problem faced by the sandwich middle class. They have written to me expressing their difficulty. Now, why are they sandwiched? They have children to look after. They have elderly parents to look after. And the elderly parents have high medical bills. So those people who are sandwiched usually have parents who have high medical bills. If we are to take care of the elderly people who need medical attention, that it should be taken care of by the country rather than by the family members. Then these people will not be sandwiched. So this is actually it is not welfare, it is social insurance. Social because it's run by the country, it's not run by the private business. This is called social insurance. Now, people who are sick when they are old, they don't choose to be sick. People who are born disabled, they don't choose to be disabled. So the burden should not be on their parents. A social insurance scheme to take care of the needs of the disabled, the elderly poor. The cost can be quite modest, and through social insurance is actually spread, borne by everybody. Of course, does it mean other people have to pay extra social insurance premium? The answer is no. The government has sufficient surplus, even current surplus, to meet. Only a small part of the current surplus can be used to meet these needs. There's no need to levy a burden on the people, and there's no need to let the family carry a unusually large burden. So this is called the sandwich middle class. The cost of public housing is very important. We need to bring public housing down to an affordable level. I remember 35 years ago, I was at the age of 25, after working for 8 years, able to buy an HDB flat at that time for $35,000, which represents, among my neighbors, they are civil servants, teachers, and those working in the commercial sector. A $35,000 flat for a 5-room flat represents an average of 3 years of the earning. That means most people at that time earn an average of $1,000. So $35,000 is 3 years. And this is the earning of one person. Today we have 2 people working, and it's 6 years of their combined income. That's why it's such a heavy burden. Now it's possible for our housing price to be made lower. And the key cause of this price inflation is tendering of land. The government tenders the land, or allows the land to be tendered, or issue the land at a price matching whatever is the latest tender price. I stand corrected. Of course, there are some that are tendered. I don't know about the others, how they are priced. Okay, so if I make a mistake, it's because of lack of information and clarity. But we do know even HDB flats are so expensive. People have to have 2 income family taking a loan for 30 years. During the time I bought my flat, it is one person working, able to pay within a 15-year loan. So between 35 years ago and now, we have this big escalation in prices, which caused a big problem. So I ask for whether I become president or not doesn't matter. I just want to voice that this is an important concern. We do need to bring the public housing price down to a more affordable level. Maybe not as low cost as it was 35 years ago, but somewhere in between. Of course, I'm going to get questions. Will this cause the property market to collapse? If new flats are at a low price, the answer is we can find a way to give low flat prices to new buyers without causing harm to those who bought their flat. It's called a different type of public housing. I remember when I bought my flat long ago, if I have to sell it, I sell it back to the HDB. I don't make market gain. But then that was possible to get a flat at a lower price. So today we can still go back to the same scheme. You buy a flat at a specially low price, then you don't expect it to be converted to market rate. You sell it back at the price based upon the formula can be adjusted with inflation. If the flat, if there's inflation, the flat price can go up, but not driven by the market. It's public housing. So that's on public housing. I also have a message about the future for our young people. And our young people face a difficult life. The competition for jobs, working long hours, expensive flat. They can't afford to marry early. They can't afford to have children, have many children. So we need to find solutions for this. Housing is one, but the next is employment practices. We shouldn't expect our young people to compete for jobs against foreigners who do not have to do national service or reservist duty service, who can earn lower salary because the cost of living in their home country, where they send the money back to their children, their family, the cost of living in their home country is much lower than Singapore. So this is important to address, so that our young people are not placed on an unfair competition. We need to give them a better future. I also finally want to mention the point of fairness in our society. We should be fair, and the fairness is I quoted the example of the use of public spaces, and how there was recently a requirement that the space can be used if certain people are not invited as guests of honor. So that's very unfair. So I'm glad that I also remind the civil servants that they are non-partisan. They are non-partisan. Our country should be run on fair principles of fairness. Doesn't matter who get elected. That's the will of the people. The civil service, the government in power must recognize and respect the will of the people. It's on fairness. There's another issue on fairness which I want to raise. Many young people ask for their national service to be deferred so they can complete their tertiary education. Because sometimes for young people, male, if they have a 2-year break, they might affect their studies, university studies. So we should consider whether it's possible to give people a chance to be deferred under where it's important for them for their own education. Yes, they can come back and do their national service after completing their tertiary education. And this privilege should not be given to only a few specially connected people. It should be made more available on the basis of fairness to all. That's all I want to say. I want to pass back to Albert. I'll take questions afterwards. Okay.